Good afternoon, this is Jerry Alt again. In this short tutorial, I just wanted to address a common question that comes up when I'm teaching workshops, when models reach out to me, or when brand new models with little or no experience reach out to my studio and they expect that I'm going to shoot them for free. I got this graphic from a model. It has the FOMO logo at the top, but I'll be honest with you, I've seen this in other places as well, so it's not particularly secret. Also, I tried to do a search for FOMO for a website, and I find nothing on a Google search, so I apologize to whoever may have created this, but it's a really great, quick graphic. So the question here is model versus photographer. Who pays who? And the point here is to try to separate new models from experienced or agency models, hobbyist photographers from professionals, and talk about what kind of relationship you should expect when you're working together. So if you follow this, it's pretty easy. It says the white arrows are pays, and the yellow arrows refer to TFP, or trade for photos. A trade for photos, or TFP shoot, is pretty common in the industry, especially for photographers who are attempting to build their portfolios. But sometimes photographers think that they ought to get paid even when the model comes to the table with a lot more experience and can really help them more than they can help the model. So when I started out with my first studio open 7 years ago now, I think it was, or going on 8 years ago, I would shoot models. I felt honored that models would, even want to work with me. I see some of those photos now and I'm like, oh my God, how could I have possibly charged anybody? But today I do a very limited number of trade shoots. Typically it's for concepts that I've got in mind for specific publications. And I find that I get even pretty experienced agency models, traveling models from around the country, who will waive any fee structure they have just for the opportunity to work with me. So depends on where you fall in the spectrum, and the same applies to models. I just thought you could take some of this into account. So if you take a look here, a new model who needs direction, doesn't really have good images in their portfolio, and we've all seen this, okay? If you're a model watching this, you've worked with whoever will take photos of you. They might not be lit properly. They might not really be attractively posed. You end up with these dull, dark images that maybe aren't cropped, and they're probably not retouched at all. You're lucky with new photographers, especially, to get anything really usable for your portfolio, but you're gaining experience in the process. So if a new model, top left, is working with a new photographer down at the bottom, then the yellow arrow says you should be working on a trade both ways. Just because you say you're a photographer, because you went to Best Buy and bought a camera, doesn't make you a professional, and doesn't mean you really ought to get paid for your work. Could I do an appendectomy in an emergency? Yeah, probably. Would I expect to get paid for doing that? No. I'm a photographer. So when you look at the new model going across to the experienced photographer, you see that that's a white arrow saying that the new model ought to be paying an experienced photographer. And I still work with new models. I offer a discount of 50% or more from my standard hourly session rates for working with new models. But what I bring is really good lighting, attractive posing, a studio scenario, often costumes and props that they might not have access to. And I can also give them advice on posing, because I've shot with so many models, hundreds of models easily at this point. So I know where hand placements are going to be wrong, how to turn the body so that you don't get that fat neck or no neck look that sometimes you can get no matter how fit you are. So let's go into this a little bit more as we go down the established model. You've done some shoots. you have some pretty good images, but there's probably some things that you'd like to add to your portfolio, and you're looking for photographers. Maybe you always wanted to do a mermaid shoot. Maybe you wanted to do something with body paint. So you're looking for better photographers than you might have worked with before. And this says that if you're working with an experienced photographer, you should still be willing to pay them something. Now, maybe you can negotiate a better rate. Then, you know, if you think you're at a point where you're charging $75 or $100 an hour for your time, but you want to shoot with a better photographer, you're reaching up, you're going into a new level, then maybe you should be trying to do that, you know, at least at a trade. But you shouldn't be surprised if that photographer insists on getting paid. They're bringing probably more years of experience, tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear in many situations, like in my studio. So you have to look at that relationship. If you're working with a new photographer, you may or may not, you know, stand out for getting paid. This suggests that you should probably be willing to work with intermediary photographers and new photographers on trade and be paying the more experienced. Now let's go to the experienced model. And if you're a very experienced model, you're probably not even watching this. But if you are, you've got runway experience, you've done commercial shoots, you've been paid, you're signed with an agency, you know what kind of poses look the best on you, then doing trade with a photographer who's at an equal level of skill or even a little bit better level of skill than you is still appropriate. But it's okay to expect to get paid by new photographers or by that intermediary kind of photographer. And then, you know, conversely, if you're an experienced photographer, you really should think about not doing trade shoots unless you just like to be creative. I've got friends of mine who are extremely experienced. They're master craftsmen photographers in the Professional Photography Association. They speak all over the country like I do. And yet, from time to time, we all like to let our creative juices out. And so, you know, maybe it's not appropriate next Saturday, but if you are experienced and you want to work on a trade basis with a really experienced photographer, throw something into the mix that they might not be able to get normally. If you're a new photographer, don't expect that you're going to reach out to the most beautiful men and women on the internet who have got tons of experience, thousands of followers, and expect that they're going to pay you, or for that matter, even shoot with you for free. The new photographers and those who are really building their portfolio should expect to pay something. And I'll just throw a caveat out here. You know, I do a lot of art nude concepts. It's something that models seek me out for. Generally, I feel if you're doing that, you ought to get paid something. You're putting yourself out there, and you need to trust the people you work with, you know, most of all, whenever you're doing a shoot, whether it's trade or not. But still, I get a lot of models who want to do that, haven't found anybody that makes them comfortable, and, you know, I get paid for that work more than I do it on trade. So anyway, this was just a quick little graph. You know, you can stop and pause on this, come back to it, kind of write it down for yourself and determine how you're going to interact with other creatives in the industry. That was it for today. If you like the video, please click the like button. And if you click the subscribe, which I'd really love to build up the number of people on my channel, you'll be notified of any future additions I make to the channel. Thank you very much.